Bop-boo-doo-bop.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Davy Squires.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Squires Station. I am your host, Davy Squires, and this episode of Squires Station is presented by Area 67 Studios in beautiful Cuyahoga Falls. Was that in tune?
It was in tune with something.
All right, that's all I need. And I am your host, Davy Squires. I don't know if I said that yet.
Well, now we know for sure.
This episode is also provided by Yingling Traditional Lager. And Mike has the water. He brought the water today. You know, hats off to Mike. He really... And there's a new table, too. There's LEDs. There's all kinds of things in here. This feels like... This just feels like home. This table is home.
You live here now.
What do you think about this, Michael?
I think this is a delightful table.
Well, I'm here with special guest Michael McFarland.
Well, hi there.
Singer, songwriter, Cleveland, right? You're from Cleveland?
I live in Cleveland. I'm originally from Kent. I lived in Summit County for a while. I lived in North Carolina for a while, but I decided to plant my flag in Cleveland about 5 years ago.
So you went Kent, North Carolina, Cleveland?
Yes.
In that order?
Yes.
So what made you want to go up to Cleveland?
So while I was living in North Carolina, I started touring all over the country, and I kind of, saw what music scenes were like in pretty much every major metro area. And there's something about the music scene in Cleveland. There's a level of community and cooperation, and it doesn't feel like people are like fighting each other to try to get the limited number of gigs.
Yeah.
It feels like people are trying to build each other up and like, hey, you make great music. I want my friends to hear your great music. I don't want to push it down so they'll hear my music. And that's something pretty special. And so I decided that was where I wanted to kind of plant my flag, and I bought a decrepit old Victorian mansion, and I've been gradually fixing it up and built a recording studio in the basement and been playing music here and using it as my home base for the last 5 years.
It's the McFarland Manor.
It is.
Is it haunted?
So I have not personally experienced any hauntings, but I have been told reports of hauntings from people that used to live there, from someone that actually grew up on the third floor of the manor, because in the 40s, so it was built in 1895 by a Cleveland lumber baron, the owner of the Prossie Lumber Company. And in the 40s, it was converted into a men's rooming house and was split up into all of these like little rooming house rooms that each had their own kitchenette, but like all shared a bathroom. Mm-hmm. And so there are tons and tons of people that cycled through it. But the top floor was its own like two bedroom apartment. And a guy that like grew up sleeping in what's now my art studio up there, said that, there were a couple times that he woke up and felt a presence in the room, couldn't move, could see his own breath. So that was literally the day that I was moving into the house. A guy walks by and like, oh, you're moving in. I grew up in that room up there. You want to know what happened?
There's a dead guy in the house.
I found a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales that had a copyright date of 1920 in the basement in a pile of junk that had on the inside, it had a different address on the street with a kid's name written in it. Oh. And ever since then, I've been looking to see if there's like missing persons reports from like the 20s, like some kid that disappeared, because that was down in the basement, and that's a weird place for a kid's book to end up.
Yeah,
with a different address on it. So, who knows what kinds of ghosts are wandering around that place.
That's vintage, like 1920.
1920.
That's going way back.
Yeah, 100 years. If my math is correct.
That is 100 years.
That is 100 years.
Holy moly. It's been 100 years since 1920.
Remember 1920? That was a heck of a time.
I remember 1920 like it was yesterday. It was before.
We'd bust out the old Victrola, crank it up, and listen to the Radetzky March.
Thomas Edison came over.
The house was actually built before they had electricity running to houses in Cleveland. There's still pipe stubs for gas lighting in the house.
Oh, nice.
And it was also built before there was running water, or at least indoor plumbing and sewage in Cleveland, because the closet in the back porch is an outhouse. Like, it literally still has the pipe that goes straight into the city sewer. I use it to store like rakes and things like that, shovels and various gardening implements. But it's actually an outhouse.
So it was like an addition was added to, like, for the actual, like, bathroom.
So they split up existing rooms and built walls and, like, added all of this stuff to turn spaces that were, would have been dressing rooms or would have been, like, bathing rooms that servants would have brought buckets of steaming water and, like, poured it over the wealthy folk as they rubbed expensive oils on themselves.
Ooh.
I'm all, this is all supposition, but
is this a story? Like, is this an actual story?
I mean, I don't have video evidence of it, but I do know that so as you know, McFarland Manor, in different times we host house concerts there, and the room that the performers perform in used to be the head servant's bedroom. So that's, there were servants' quarters. The third floor was also servants' quarters. So there literally were servants that were living in the house and taking care of these lumber baron folks back in the early 1900s.
I bet they were drinking Yingling.
It is America's oldest brewery. They would have shipped it in from it's in Pennsylvania, right?
I think. Hold on, let me read the can here. So it was last night the first time you played out since?
So I've done quite a few outdoor shows over the summer, but those are mostly done for the foreseeable future because it's getting cold.
Yeah.
And I had done a bunch of, again, outdoor private events. I did one other indoor show, socially distanced, mask mandatory, limited capacity, earlier in the month at Wilbert's in Cleveland. But yeah, I've only done 2 indoor shows since March.
Yeah.
So, and the Winchester, they've handled everything right. The tables were all spaced out, and they made sure that everything was done, in the proper way that people could feel comfortable and safe being there. And it's going to be really interesting for the next several months as we go into the fall and winter, to see how all these places that have been, finding a way around making things happen with outdoor shows and all of that, how they navigate the winter months with indoor concerts. But last night it felt almost normal. Like
normal.
Almost normal. People were sitting down as opposed to like standing up front, pressed against the stage, shoulder to shoulder. But it it almost felt normal. So that was pretty cool.
We got to work our way up to dancing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. We're in like the Footloose town. There's no dancing allowed. You have to sit and watch the music. But eventually Kevin Bacon's going to show up and we'll be back to dancing.
Oh, yeah. And when he does show up, it will be like the second coming of Kevin Bacon.
Exactly.
It's Footloose too. Wait, did they make a sequel to Footloose?
They did. I don't think Kevin Bacon he at the very least was not the star of it.
That's why no one watched it. That's like Christmas Story 2.
I certainly didn't.
I didn't know he existed. That's like Christmas Story 2.
Wait, they made a sequel?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that. I live like a 2-minute bike ride from the Christmas Story house, and I didn't know that.
Nobody wants to remember it. It's an abomination of epic proportions. I can't believe it exists, honestly.
Santa Claus was disappointed in it.
Yeah.
It made Santa Claus cry.
He
and Baby
abolished
Jesus.
He took it away. Well, going back to your music, are you Do you just play guitar or?
So I play a little bit of everything. On my records, I play everything except the drums. So I do play drums, but not nearly as well as my drummer, who is also my co-producer on the records, Eric Bertignolli. And he's my drummer when we play live, or at least I have sort of a rotating cast of band members depending on who's available for any shows. So Eric is one of the drummers for Michael McFarland and the Messmakers. That's the backing band when I have a full band. Mm-hmm. My friend Mike Mogling is our other drummer, and we've got River McNeil on bass, but he can also play guitar if Kevin Conaway is not available to play
it's like
guitar.
Musical chairs.
It is, but they're all pros. They know the material well enough that they can switch instruments if they need to, and we can do it as a 3-piece, a 4-piece, or a 5-piece depending on the show and because everyone's got their other projects that they're part of. Kevin's a phenomenal singer-songwriter himself, and so he keeps a pretty busy show schedule. So I have to book him ahead of time if we're gonna have him on board. And River has a project called Horizon Lights that he performs under, and Eric's in a couple of other bands because good drummers are always in demand. So he's in. This is one of my favorite things. He is in 2 cover bands. One of them is called The Ladies' Night, and they are an all-male pop diva cover band.
What?
Their vocalist has this incredible vocal range that he can sing, the pop diva songs without having to go into falsetto. He can just kill it. And then those same guys are in a boy band rock cover band called Bruh, spelled Bruh. And sometimes Bruh will open for the Ladies' Night, and it's awesome. So Eric, phenomenal drummer. He's the co-producer on the records. He plays the drums, and he's the one that handles mixing and mastering the tracks as well.
Yeah.
But everything else, the guitars, bass, keys, and apart from some big group backing vocals and the guest spot by Mixed Feelings 216, who's they're this amazing neo soul R&B group out of Cleveland. They sing on the last track of the record. They came in and just killed it on that song. The song's called Invincible. But apart from those, all the parts you hear on the record were me in my basement studio by myself during a pandemic, staying up all night writing and recording. Because what else are you going to do?
Well, I was wondering if you played the drums because you are a wizard with the loops.
I do play the drums, and it's if you watch my right foot, even though I'm wearing this studded leather bracelet, not just to try to look like a rock star,
You're
but
edgy.
because see, I bought this when I was like 17, and I thought it was freaking edgy, but I never threw it away, and I discovered by accident that the leather and the metal studs on my guitar give this awesome kick drum sound. So that's the actual kick drum sound you'll hear when I perform live. But you'll notice that I almost always stomp my right foot as if I were hitting a kick drum as well.
Yeah.
Because it's so ingrained in me because I actually play drums to do that. So, I write my songs with both full band and loop-based arrangements in mind, so that I can manage to sort of down convert the songs from full arrangements to just me with my 3/4 scale guitar and loop pedal, or we can do it with a full 4 or 5 piece band and really do big lush arrangements.
Yeah. Is the guitar choice like a conscious choice for the sound it makes? Or?
So the guitar is it's a outgrowth of the fact that I used to tour on a motorcycle. That's not a joke. That is literally the truth. I started using a 3/4 scale guitar because for 3 or 4 years I was doing 27-day tours all around the eastern United States, basically everywhere east of the Mississippi, on a 2008 Triumph Bonneville with a guitar strapped on the back. And 3/4 scale guitar means less wind resistance, and so it's a lot easier to strap a smaller guitar on. And I got used to it. And I got used to the, like, switching back to a full-size acoustic feels really weird for me, just because, like, the arm positions and all that. And I can play a 3/4 scale much more like I play an electric guitar, because the action and the pressure required to play the notes is much more akin to one of my electrics than it is to a standard acoustic guitar. And I can move around and, like, toss the guitar behind me a lot more fluidly.
Yeah, I did see that last night. Like, yeah.
So there's a comfort level there. As far as the sound goes, I actually use a cello pickup that I have wired into the preamp that's right below the bridge, so it picks up all the vibrations from the guitar. And the guitar that I'm using, it didn't come with any electronics in it at all, so those were all custom installed. And it's just a button transducer pickup right below the bridge, and that's how I managed to. So when I use that studded bracelet, like I mentioned, I'm hitting right where that pickup is, and so that's how you get the big, like,
bassy,
thump and the snap, and then my knuckles on the like 4 inches away from that get me the really nice snap sound for the snare, and then I combine that with an upstroke on muted strings that almost, like, fake the sound of a snare wire, and mix that with beatboxing, and it sounds like this really full, like, drum kit vibe. So
literally, like, I was sitting there last night, it's like, wow, that is a lot of sound.
I make a lot of noise for one skinny dude with a small acoustic guitar.
Yeah, dude, yeah, you're hopping and bopping on stage, man. Like, you're getting into it.
I have a lot of fun doing what I do, and hopefully that comes across when I'm performing.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's talk about this new album here.
Okay.
Through This Fire, is that a reference to this year? Or?
That absolutely is a reference. Yes, 100%. A friend of mine actually came up to me after the show and asked, do you view this as a concept record? And I hadn't thought about it as such, but absolutely, yes, I do.
There's a thematic thing going on here.
There really is a theme to it, because apart from the second song on the record, which was recorded late last year, all of the songs were written in, like, the 3 weeks after the initial COVID lockdowns, because everything was shut down. We had the shelter-in-place, stay-at-home orders, and I've got a recording studio in the basement, and so I was filled with existential dread and wasn't able to sleep. Like, my anxiety meds weren't doing what they're supposed to, because they usually take the anxiety from here down to about here, but when it's all the way up there, then so I was dealing with insomnia, and I've always used productivity as a coping mechanism, and so couldn't sleep, have recording studio, world is on fire, might as well write.
That's the title.
Yeah, so it's that's one of the lyrics from the closing track, Invincible, and the line is, if we make it through this fire, we're going to be invincible. So that was kind of the hopeful take on everything is awful right now. But there's another song called The New Contagion that has the lyric, after every hurricane the sun starts shining, and trying to look forward. And again, End of the World is about the party that we're going to throw when it's safe to throw parties again. So yeah, it's a concept record about isolation and the coping mechanisms that we use to deal with being separated from one another and from our passions, and from having a clear vision of what the future is going to be.
Yeah. Well, you played Invincible last night, and that's I'd say that one's my favorite off.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a really good closer. Like,
it's it leaves you with that, like, just that little bit of hope at the end of it, because there's one of the things that I say about my music is that the theme of almost everything that I've written, whether it's about relationships, whether it's about, living through a global pandemic, whether it's about, anything, The theme is life sucks. The world is a hard place to live in, but there is hope and things can get better.
Yeah.
And so that kind of runs through this, maybe even more than anything I've written before, because you have to have something to hold on to, right?
Oh, definitely. Well, you just released this last Friday.
On Friday. Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
October 23rd.
How's that been? Like releasing an album during this time?
I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. I figured there wasn't a different time to release it though. Like the funny thing for me is I wrote most of these songs in later March and early April and had most all of them recorded by like the end of April. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote the songs, naive younger me back in those days was thinking to myself, man, all of this stuff I'm writing about, by the time I release it, it's not going to be relevant anymore. And now I'm like, man, I wish I'd been right about that. It's all still way too relevant. Some of it even more. Like, I hadn't known that California was going to catch fire, but there's lyrics in the third song about, you can watch your house collapse in ash and ember. Like, well, I didn't mean to Nostradamus that.
Yeah.
I apologize,
Jeez,
California.
Michael, you really dropped the ball on this one. I can't believe you.
Yeah, this is one of those. It's like a stranger than fiction thing where I'm accidentally like writing all the terrible things that are happening in this world. So maybe I should just like hold off for a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, this has been the release so far. The reception has been really heartening to me, because I was worried, like, how do you release music? I can't book a tour in support of this, because that's usually what I do. Like, you release an album, you go on tour in support of it. Like, that's what you do. I usually by this point, because last night we had the record release show at the Winchester, so I would be probably playing in Columbus tonight, and then I'd be playing in Louisville, Kentucky on Monday, and then I'd be heading down to Nashville, and then down to the Gulf Coast, and heading over to New Orleans, and making my way up to Minneapolis, and doing that whole
any other year.
Right, any other year. That would have been, I would have been booking that through the summer, getting that all set up. But that was not in the cards for this time around. But there have been some really, really cool things that have happened. My partner Amanda is part of the flow dance community, so she does fire spinning and fan veil dancing and like all of these really cool prop dancing stuff. You can look her stuff up as fiercely serene flows on Instagram. But she went and sneakily reached out to the flow dance community throughout the world and sent them the album ahead of time. And so like at midnight on Friday, I started getting these notifications on Instagram of people in China and France and all over the US and Europe dancing to the songs on this new record. And like every single song on the record, like someone had picked every one of those songs. If you check out the hashtag Through This Fire on Instagram, you'll see all of these incredible dance performances.
Well, all of these songs are very relatable to anybody. Really.
Thank you. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's unfortunate. But thank you.
But they are all relatable in their own disappointing way.
I mean, again, there's the seed of hope in all of them. It's it's all with that. Yeah, this is terrible. This sucks, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a grief counseling adage that Amanda, the one my partner who set up the whole almost like flash mob all around the globe of people dancing to the music. She likes to mention, which is that it's a tunnel, not a cave. So while you're going through it, you've gone into this dark place and there's no end in sight. But if you keep pushing forward, there is a way out. and it might not be visible right now, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and eventually you're going to see it. And so I think that's a metaphor which is applicable to a lot of these songs. Even if none of them specifically use that metaphor. I wrote an entirely different song for my other project that's called "It's a Tunnel, Not a Cave."
Wow!
But that's a discussion for a different day.
Yeah.
that project is all about androids and future apocalypse. And
Ooh,
this is
science
about present
fiction.
apocalypse. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hello Headrush is the name of that, and when I perform with that, I look like an android who's missing one eye, and I've got projections of two other versions of me playing guitar and bass on either side of me. So it's a trip.
So it's Daft Punk?
That's sort of, but not. Honestly, musically, it's a little bit of like mindless self-indulgence meets Power Man 5000 meets a little bit of Daft Punk, like especially on the Random Access Memories record with some of that like funk mixed in with stuff, and just some good old straight up like dancey rock stuff. So yeah, Hello Headrush is a really, really interesting project that's very different from the stuff on this record.
Wow. Huh.
But yeah, that's
a cool combination. Wow. I never thought of that before.
There's a lot of world building that happens in the Hello Headrush universe.
It's like musical Lord of the Rings. A little bit.
That's there's that actually kind of fits a little bit.
If you were to give a film genre to your music, what would it be?
I think it would vary based on record. So
what about this one? Since we're talking about it.
So this one is definitely post-apocalyptic, but like right after the bombs drop. So it's not like distant future where society's been rebuilt. It's more like Children of Men style. Like it's kind of present day, and you're dealing with immediate fallout of everything going to hell. So that's what this record is, I think.
Very optimistic.
Again, there's that ray of hope.
The last song.
Yeah. It's like in Waterworld. They find the map to dry land at the end of it.
Did they make a sequel to that?
They sadly didn't. I love Waterworld. I know that it got like critically panned, but I genuinely love that movie. I own it on DVD, and I have watched it more times than I can count. From that first scene where he turns his own urine into drinkable water, I'm sold. I'm right there with him.
That's like what Jesus did. I think, right? Isn't that how it goes? Wait.
Urine into water, then water into wine. It's the pre-Jesus.
It's the pre-Jesus. Pre-Jesus.
Pre-Jesus.
Is that like a music genre?
I'm talking about. That's before they start making Christian rock. That's what artists play. They play pre-Jesus.
Oh yeah.
It's sort of like post-hardcore pre-Jesus.
It's like bluegrass. Bluegrass. You mentioned a couple venues earlier. Are there any favorites of yours in the Cleveland area?
In the Cleveland area, so there are some stages that I absolutely love playing. The Winchester where I played last night is great, and one of the best things about the Winchester is Ben, the sound guy who was running sound last night, is a pro. Like, he makes everything sound phenomenal. He takes good musicians and makes them sound great, and he takes okay musicians and makes them sound palatable. And so I consider myself to be one of the okayest musicians out there, and it's great working with him. So I'm a big fan of the Winchester. The 5 o'clock Lounge is one of my favorite spots to play with the full band. In normal times, just because there's a built-in crowd that even if they have never heard of your band, they'll come over to the side that's got the stage on it and check out what's going on, and it's always a blast to play there. The Grog Shop, I absolutely love playing the Grog Shop. So that's one of my favorite spots. The Beachland's always a good time. Honestly, Wilbert's downtown, they're one of the places that I've always had a blast playing. But there's so many good places to play. One of the reasons, we talked earlier about why I chose Cleveland, and one of the reasons that I chose Cleveland as a home base is the number of markets within a few hours drive. So, it only takes you 2 hours to get to Columbus, and there's a whole different set of venues. It's, an hour and 15 to get to Youngstown, and, places like Susie's Dogs and Drafts in Youngstown and all those. It's, same to get to Canton, and you've got Buzzbin, and you've got all of those places like the Oracle and all of those venues. And Kent, where I grew up, I've played at the Outpost tons of times with my bands back in the day, and it's sadly no longer there. But the Professor's Pub and the Stone Tavern were amazing places to play. Like I loved playing those spots.
That takes me back.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But I was actually just talking with a guy who used to run the Professor's Pub on an Instagram message. He reached out about the new record, and because he was one of the people I was talking about when I was first starting to do. Actually, it was at the Professor's Pub open mic was the first place that I ever played any of my solo material.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and my sister was in town she was living in Brazil at the time, and she and Brad, who was the guy who ran the place, both encouraged me to go record that material, and that was a similar kind of experience to this, where I'd written 2 songs when I played that open mic, and had dragged up like one other song from my high school band, and figured out how to do that on acoustic guitar. And they said you should go record this stuff, and so literally that next weekend I locked myself in my old studio, which was at a place I lived at in Stowe, and I wrote 4 more songs and recorded all of them over the course of a weekend, and
Nice.
and released that almost exactly 10 years ago. 2 weeks ago would have been the 10-year anniversary of my first release as a solo artist. And now,
Nice.
7 records later, we've got Through This Fire. So
Bada bing boom.
there we go.
That's how it all started.
Yep.
Wow.
That's my origin story for this.
That's your Marvel origin story.
Don't ask about my secret identity.
Okay, so what tips would you give to any younger musicians just starting out?
Write a lot. Like that is the number one thing. Write a whole lot of songs. Most of them are going to be terrible. That's okay. Keep writing. Eventually they'll be less terrible. And same thing, if you're not a good singer, keep working on it. You might be terrible, but I think it's an Adventure Time thing. The first step to being kind of okay at something is sucking at something. It's something like that. Sucking at something is the first step to being kind of okay at something. And you can go from being kind of okay at something to being pretty good at something. So it really is, and I know tons of people have said this, there's a whole 10,000 hours and all of that. It's true. I listened to recordings of me singing in my band in high school. I was awful. And I'm not saying I'm any amazing vocalist, but I was bad. I was real bad. And I was the best vocalist in that band, and I was bad. And as time went on, I took vocal lessons, and I kept working on things, and I got a little bit less bad, and eventually I got to kind of okay, and now occasionally people tell me that they think I'm a good singer, and I'm still surprised by that when it happens. Same thing with songwriting. Like I wrote the first song I wrote was pretty darn good. The next 100, awful. The first song kept me going for the next 100 because, I was like, well, that one I can tell is good. Yeah. So that's in me somewhere. But yeah, and if you have limitations. So I have a joint condition called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. All of my joints are hypermobile, and and hyperlax, which means they all bend in the wrong direction and the right direction further than they should, which means that I started developing scar tissue in my hands when I was like 14 years old, and my joints started stiffening, which is why I gave up studying classical piano, and why I have this really percussive style on my guitar, not just with like beating out the rhythms, but even the way I approach, playing chords and things, is because I have limitations to the way my fingers will move. So if you have limitations, figure out how to make that into, something unique about what you do. If you have a voice that doesn't sound like everyone else's, that might be a good thing, because everyone else sounds like everyone else. If you've got a unique timbre to your voice, if you've got an unusual range, one of my favorite vocalists is Tom Waits, and his voice sounds like, he marinated it in bourbon and nicotine and then like left it on a freeway for a couple of weeks to get run over by semis, and then had it reinstalled. And I freaking love Tom Waits' catalog because he's taken that and he's made it into something unique. So if you want to be a songwriter, write a lot of really bad songs and eventually you'll write some good songs. If you want to be a vocalist, find out what your voice can do that other people's voices can't, and turn that into a strength. And really that's kind of the trick to all of it, is finding out what you can do that's special and doing that. It's one of my favorite quotes is from Dolly Parton. And it's, figure out who you are, then do it on purpose. And I think that's, probably some of the best advice that you can give for any pursuit in life. Figure out what it is that you want to do, what you're passionate about, and who you are at your core, what you believe in, what is, your passionate, what makes you want to get up in the morning, and, make that your purpose. Do that.
Oh, Michael McFarland, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me,
So
Davey.
much
This
for
has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is good time. We got a lot of topics covered, Like,
probably some neither of us expected to cover.
oh, it's always like a grab bag of just random shit we talk about. Like, I don't ever know what we're talking about on the show. And where can they find your beautiful face?
Well, it is attached to the front of my skull. But if you're looking for pictures of it and music that goes along with it, the easiest way to find all of my stuff is by going to Michael McFarland Music, and that's McFarland spelled McFarland. MichaelMcFarlandmusic.com. That's got links to, my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, my YouTube, my Spotify. I'm not on TikTok yet, but the kids tell me that that's the hip thing to do, so I might be by tomorrow. You never know. Apparently, my music is on TikTok. I've been informed that it is available to make TikTok dances too, if one is so inclined.
You can find me on Instagram at Davey_Squires, and you can find me on Facebook, Davey Squires Music. I also have a Patreon page. If you want to donate, it's only $5 a month. You can get all the episode bloopers. You can get all the extra artist videos.
Do it.
All of that at my Patreon. That's patreon.com/Davey Squires.
Do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This next song is where the title for my new record comes from. The song is called Invincible. The record is called Through This Fire. And on the record, the part that I'm about to record, the vocal part, is done by two amazing R&B gospel neo-soul vocalists. I'm a white dude, so I'm going to see what I can do to recreate a little bit of the magic that they brought to the studio. This life is like a crucible. Sometimes it burns. It feels hotter than it used to though. But now's the time to learn. Oh, 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 oh. Know that this heat is gonna make us stronger. Oh, 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 oh. Everybody gets beat now and then if we make it through this fire. If we can't survive the blow, till you find us forged inside. Strong like steel, hot to go through this fire. Well, you know we're gonna be invincible. Oh, 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 oh. Blast furnace is a proving ground, but now you're on the bench. Your soul bellows out a soothing sound, 'cause here comes the quench. Oh, 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 oh. Know that this place is gonna test our metal. Oh, oh, oh. But everybody gets best in the end if we make it through this fire. If we can't survive the blow, till you find us forged inside. Strong like steel, hot to go through this fire. Well, you know we're gonna be invincible. Oh. Well, you're taking your time, use the hammer inside of the pain you're refusing to feel. 'Cause it burns to be born in a furnace and forming the flames that are forging your steel. It's the flames that are forging your steel. We make it through this fire. If we can't survive the blows, till you find us forged inside. Crucible, strong like steel. Yes, we make it through this fire. If we can't survive the blows, till you find us forged inside. Crucible, strong like steel. Hot to go through this fire. Well, you know we're gonna be. Yeah, you know we're gonna be invincible. Oh, 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 invincible. Oh, 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 invincible.